Good evening. My name is Chris Goody, and I'm a member of the Historic Preservation Commission. For the month of April, this lecture series has presenters that will dig a little deeper into the history of Spencer. This evening, you will learn a little bit more about the history of the airport in our fair city. It could easily be said that Tim has had flying in his blood for years. He actually soloed in a plane at the age of 16 before he even had his driver's license. Spanning 3 generations of pilots that began with his father and now his daughter, Tim owned a plane and has been on the airport board for many years. Tim will be speaking of the origin of the airport in Spencer. He will cover master plans for its layout. He will cover what it took from a federal level to make this airport a reality in Spencer. He will cover current happenings from the last 10 to 15 years. I know that in the process of Tim's presentation that questions will come to your mind. We'll get a question and answer session at the conclusion of Tim's presentation. I'll be getting a microphone to you so that Tim can hear the question being asked. Just as a reminder, please don't interrupt Tim during his presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Tim Steffen.
All right. Good afternoon. Karen, can you hear me okay? Okay, sounds good. Well, yeah, I'm Tim Steffen. As Chris said, I started flying when I was 15 back in 1969. Sold on my 16th birthday. I got a lot of people I want to thank for this report, so I'm going to start down the list here. Gail sitting in the front, she's going to comment on some Great Lakes aviation stuff. Kirby Schmidt and Al Schmidt were very informative putting some things together. Al has passed away a few years ago, but a lot of information came from that direction. Public Works Department for assisting with this. And my aviation background comes from my father, Wyman. He was a crew chief on some of the B-17s in World War II stateside, never got overseas. After the war, he got his pilot's license, bought airplanes, and got to ride along with him and had a lot of fun. He eventually was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, which is not too far away from where the Thunderbirds are training currently and where Area 51 is at. Wyman received his pilot certificate. He's a VFR pilot, flew lots of different airplanes. Yeah, when I started my career, I was taught by a fellow by the name of Andy Anderson, who ran the Royal Grocery Store and did flight training in the meantime. Very, very smooth, accomplished pilot. Then I, at the age of 16, got my soloed. Then a few years later, or shortly after that, I paused for a while because of fumes, exhaust and purr. And then in 1997, my father decided to retire from his seat on the airport board. I asked Mayor Kleber-Meyer if I could take it over, and he said yes, so that's what I've been doing since. My daughter Molly is also a pilot, and she got her license just prior to getting married. Okay, let's go on. So we're going to go through the slides. This is a picture of the airport taken a couple years ago. There's many different levels here. The beacon in the background and the orange hangar were built around 1940-42. Terminal was built in the 70s, and the Gulfstream aircraft that's parked out front is fairly new. So there's spanning 70 years of time frame there. Okay, let's see. So we're going to go back to the early years. This is a map of Spencer, I think about 1939 that was taken. And the airport, follow the little red dot, back then is just right about here where Don Pearson Ford is at. That's where it was. Slider Gilmore was telling me that his uncle Dean Gilmore was the FBO out there. And the ground, I believe, was owned by the Hart family back then, and it has multiple runways because of wind. The older aircraft had very poor what they call crosswind capabilities, and so they either had a circular airport or they had lots of variation in runways. I'll pull that up. So here's the same airport with the runways highlighted. I have a cousin that flew for Continental. He flew 757 airplanes. This is the Spencer radio frequency that you're hearing on the scanner. Got it turned on for a while. Well, yeah, the 757 has an auto land feature. You can push a button, it will land in a 40-knot direct crosswind. I can't know, none of the planes we ever flew were anywhere close to that. The next slide is the hangar that was out at the south end of town. Now, this is either the first one or the second one. The first one burned down in a fire, and then this was rebuilt, and this is the H&N's used car lot in South Spencer. This is the doors, which are adequate to get an aircraft in. Okay. So now we're going to jump up to World War II. In about 1942, one of the generals, name was, escapes me at the moment, I'll come back to it, started a glider schools, many glider schools around the country. And this is a World War II glider that was used in the European theater. And they were trained in Spencer, Bernie Wheeler being one of the pilots. Picture of a Stearman aircraft with two of the pilots. Another glider. And this is the type of aircraft that was stationed in Spencer during the glider training. So what I'm guessing they did most of the time, it's a two-seat airplane, had a regular pilot in the back, and the newbie pilot was in the front. And they would take off, cut the engine, glide back in. So that was the training mechanism was done. Now, one of our little more famous Spencerites, Bernie Wheeler, was trained at the Spencer School. That's where he met his wife Claire in town. And I'm going to read you a little bit of passages from the gliders, and if anybody wants a copy of that, I got a few of them up here. So in the spring of 1942, a young man from all over the United States came to Spencer to become glider pilots. Through the training period was brief, the warm community of Spencer was imprinted upon their minds, including Bernie Wheeler, who returned to Northwest Iowa to marry his sweetheart, Claire, who he met when he was in Spencer. He settled here serving as county treasurer for many years, and he was also a blacksmith prior to that. Major Angus Reed accounts the history of the 23rd Army Air Force's gliders training detachment based in Spencer. We arrived in this lovely Spencer town of about 5,000 people in the northwest corner of Iowa. Quickly, as we made the Tangney Hotel our official residence, we met a civilian contractor by the name of Lieutenant Colonel Dan Hunter, former World War II pilot, or World War I pilot, I'm sorry. Currently connected with the Civil Air Patrol, fine man, compassionate, and patriotic. Our flight operations would take place at the Spencer Airport about 2 miles northwest of town. The city had agreed to lease it for $1 per year. It had a raised grass-covered runway, one Quonset-type hangar, and one small building. The contractor had begun construction of a large building to handle our offices, ready rooms, latrines, supplies, etc. The facility for housing the students was at the Clay County Fairgrounds, adjacent to town. It was offered for the same patriotic price of $1 per year and consisted of a cluster of buildings normally used during fair time by the youngsters exhibiting their cattle and things. The schedule called for 200 students every 2 weeks to take the courses, taking 4 weeks to complete. The stay in Spencer was short but intense. The glider training program began in the May of 1942, and when the brisk October winds moved in, Hunter decided to take his flying lessons to Texas. Apparently October's too cold around here. So, yeah, that's a nice little thing. There is a slide somewhere that I have not been able to find of Harry Truman talking to a general out at the Spencer Airport. That's been missing. Okay. Here's a copy of what we just read. Picture from kind of back then. The buildings is it's actually called an arch roof building. This is the flight operations area. building for maintenance purposes, older aircraft, runway here. This one is no longer in use. Another runway here, which is 1230, that is in use. And then there's another runway here, 1836. The ground was purchased over several years. Section 1 is right there in the middle. That was the original airport. Then we go out to Section 2 and 3. There's Section 3 is up here, 4, and so on. Then it keeps punching out to the northwest over the years. And this was purchased with light funds from the light plant and federal matching funds. Usually it's typically 10% a local match and 90% Fed funds that funds most of these type of operations. Another current look at what an airport looks like right now. One of the things we do have are easements for flight operations. So down, I'm going to go back. Down on the bottom here, this is West 18th Street. And we purchased an easement over here for so nobody builds a grain silo that's too tall or parks their equipment overnight when they're farming it. We have another easement over here. This is the the transfer station. And then we have this air easement here, and we have since purchased this ground from the airport. More easements up to the north and out to the west as well. This shows some of the funds done, the years they were done. We've got 1940 up at the top when the ground was purchased. Quonset hangar, original structures being built. Six-place T hangar was built. There was 2 T hangars built. One was steel, one was wood. We had a tornado back in the 60s, and the wood one is no longer there. The steel one is still standing, and the Quonset type building is still standing. Overlaying of existing runways. Wind instruments typically can be a wind socks or a T that's based on the ground that moves around in a circle. Let's go on to the next one. Runway extension easements, improvements, runways, just all kinds of stuff. There's federal grants, local grants, costs. Painted the Quonset hangar for $4,500. We spent more than that doing it the last time. Installation of an ILS system was done in '92, and that's responsible because Great Lakes Airlines was in town at that time. $1.6 million. Federal funds of $1.5 million and city funds of $167,000. More land acquisition. Then we do what we call master plans. Now there's 3 of them on the desk over here. One was in '92, and we've done 2 others since then. And the master plan is a device that the feds require us to do. So if we want to get federal money for an airport, we hire a master planner, engineers. They come out and measure everything and go by what the federal rules are. And then they give us a index of what we need to do to receive the money and go forward with different projects. So we'll typically take one master plan, we'll fill in everything on it, then we'll get another master plan, go through that and accomplish everything in that plan, and go on to a third plan and so on. So that kind of dictates how our money is spent from the feds. We currently get about $150,000 a year in Fed funds, and that's been constant for the last probably 20 plus years. It hasn't gone up, even though inflation has really very much eroded the spendability of that money. One of the things we do is we buy a lot of concrete. This is a picture of a few years ago working on the ramp in Spencer. DeLoss Construction was doing this particular project. And here's their finish machine. Now, if you notice up on the top of the thing, We got some red barricades there to keep the airplanes from running into the construction area. And when we do these projects, we have to have a disadvantaged business entity participate in the project. So Bonnie's Barricades is the red things there. She gets a lot of disadvantaged business options at airports. Yeah, barricades, rental barricades. There's another picture of up in the back in the red area back here. That's Bonnie's Barricades. We have to do slump tests on the concrete we pour it to make sure that it doesn't slump too easily. Here's an example of Ross doing that with one of the guys, and then they measure it to see how thick it is, and so it doesn't fall apart. Now, this particular project, because we got upgraded into a higher category of airport, we're required to use a special type of stone, limestone, which we have to bring in. They had to bring in from Gilmore City. We cannot use the state highway mix anymore. We have to get into more specialized products. This added about 25% to the cost of this project. At the airport, we have several different businesses. This is Gail Brandt and Randy Vander Whitey. Gail's the airport manager. I should say Randy's the airport manager, and Gail is his Spencer associate. She's in charge of all kinds of stuff. Randy is not here, but Gail is. Randy lives in Sioux Center. These are some of the mechanics at the airport. They do a very, very good job of maintaining airplanes. If you are renting your aircraft, you have to have it gone through every 100 hours. That's a requirement. If you're a private pilot like I am, we do it once a year. Example of an engine in a Cirrus aircraft. Cirrus is a fiberglass airplane, or I should say Kevlar airplane. The little round thing in the middle is a radar on a twin-engine aircraft. They're kind of busy in their hangar right now. Another close-up of the radar apparatus on the twin aircraft. This one's being rewired for a new panel. This is the kind of what it takes to do it. It's a mess. Another view of it. Yeah, this is not untypical. This is actually kind of typical. I'm sure it happens. We have another business on the airport called Spencer Avionics. They specialize in doing the wiring and that type of thing. So it was started by Bill Hemme. Here's a picture of Bill getting a Lifetime Achievement 50-year pilot award from the state for being a very accomplished pilot. And this is the current owners of Spencer Avionics, Quentin and Jane DeGroot. They do radios, GPS installations, and all that kind of stuff. They do a great job. Another business we have at the airport is Cam Air. Cam Air specializes in turbine engine repair. So if you have a jet engine on an airplane, in this case it's a turboprop, they specialize in Pratt & Whitney PT6 engines. And do a great job overhauling them and fixing them in 100-hour inspections and all that type of thing. Another business on the air is Dakota Spray Service, formerly Wilbur Ellis Spraying. They rent one of the hangars at the airport where they do crop dusting. That's a very short season, about 2 to 3 months out of the year. And also Leading Edge Aviation does crop spraying as well, and we have a third one out there that does crop spraying too. This is just a neat picture of the back end of a spray airplane. Now, the newest thing we're going to have at the airport starting this August is Iowa Lakes Community College. I talked to the flight instructor for that last night. His name is Tim Bush. We'll be having 60 students in Spencer starting their flight training. And with that 60 is going to be 10 aircraft moving down here. Iowa Lakes just got a grant from the feds for about $500,000, and they're going to use that money for a drone and helicopter program, which will be based out of Esterville. And are still in Esterville. A lot of politics involved in this thing, as you can imagine. This is the type of aircraft they'll be flying. This is my old Cessna 172. And that's the type of plane they'll be flying, which is the most popular aircraft ever made. They'll be using an M model. Mine's an H model. I sold that on Facebook a couple years ago and got the first response in 20 minutes after posting it on a Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Yeah, and it has been for sale in Florida. Not sure I like the Florida part because of the rust factor. I'm going to come back to this slide a little later. This is Little Debbie's snack cakes. It's kind of important. We're going to have a quiz about this. So, a BizJet. This is Bill Hemme. We have a group out at the airport called the EAA, Experimental Aircraft Association, based out of.
We just got to say that's our kids.
Yes, you can. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm like, wait a minute.
You know them? All right. Well, anyhow, Experimental Aircraft Association based out of Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Started a program a few years ago where they pilots that are members of that group fly kids for their first airplane ride. So far, there's been 2.3 million kids flown on their first ride. I personally have done over 250. Another picture of airplane kids signing up for it. Another picture of Bill. Now we're going to get into Great Lakes Aviation. Great Lakes Aviation was founded in 1977 by Doug Voss and Ivan Simpson, Spirit Lake. Started small, kept growing the business, and specialized based out of Spencer for years. Gail is a part owner of Great Lakes, so she can fill any questions you might have about them.
We started in Spencer in '81.
Now, here, talk to the microphone.
Okay. Yeah, Great Lakes got the airport management contract and the FBO contract in 1981 and was there through July of 2001. So was there for 20 years. And obviously through those years, the company grew hugely over the years with the airline service. But it all did start at Spirit Lake Airport. Operated the Spirit Lake Airport starting in 77, and then actually operated both airports. I think we finished up at Spirit Lake in 84, 85, something like that. And then we were solely just in Spencer. And through those years, we ran what we call the FBO, or the fixed base operation. The FBO ran through all those years, and that's the part of the company that provides the services at the airport, selling fuel, flight instruction, charter, maintenance, any needs that any transient customers are needing. And then the other side of it was the scheduled airline service side. The very first flight was October 12th of 1981. I got to write out the first airline ticket that morning. We had a lady just show up. She didn't have a reservation. She just showed up for the flight. And so, yeah, the first flight started going 3 days a week from Spencer to Des Moines. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we'd go down in the morning and we would come back in the afternoon. And that all started because of, there was a local law firm here in Spencer that was doing a large case in Des Moines, and they had people going back and forth all the time. And so they were the big part of our ridership initially. And then beyond that, we opened up the rest of the seats for anybody else to fly along. So that's kind of how it got started. The first flight was in a Piper Seneca, which is a 6-seat airplane, a twin-engine 6-seat airplane. I don't know, how much do you want me to talk?
We've got an hour to kill, so.
You got it about you know, so then we went into a little larger. We went into a Piper Navajo. That was also a twin-engine piston airplane, but it had 8 seats. And then we also had a Cessna 402 initially, and then we got into the larger airplanes, the Beech 99s. Beech 99s were a 2-pilot crew. They carried 9 passengers, I guess, if you will. And the very first one, I can vividly remember flying into Spencer. We bought it from Mississippi Valley Airlines. It was the most beat up looking airplane you would. And I was like, oh my goodness, okay. But then we put a new paint scheme on it. We put a whole new interior in it. We put all upgraded equipment on it and so forth. And so that was our first workhorses, I guess you would call them. There are still lots of 99s flying today in the freight industry, not so much in passenger configuration any longer. And then we jumped into the Beechcraft 1900s. We first had C models, B models, and C models. Those were kind of a shorter cabin. You couldn't necessarily stand up in them, but they would carry 19 passengers. And then they got the D models, which was a stand-up cabin. They had a larger baggage configuration in the back of the airplane. Again, just a workhorse airplane, and lots of 1900s still in service today. And then we did jump into the Embraer Brasilia 120s. The Embraer Brasilias did carry 30 passengers. They required a flight attendant on board. So all of those airplanes coming through Spencer and provided service to a lot of different locations, of course, but all the training for all the crew members and the flight attendants all happened here in Spencer. And that's something to be noted for. A lot of the airplanes flew the routes through the day. Then the instructor pilots would fly them for about 3-4 hours, starting 10, 11 o'clock at night, and fly through the night. And then the aircraft would get cleaned, and they would go through their maintenance inspection and be ready to go 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning for the next departure. We use the hotel here in Spencer for a lot of our training was done there or at the airport. But Jerry would drive that van back and forth to the airport multiple times a day, running crews, running flight attendants, just running our people back and forth consistently. And so it's so fun today. I'll have a corporate airplane will come in, or I'll have one of the fractionals, the NetJets, or some of those guys come in, and I'll be sitting in my office, and one of the crew members will say, "Yep, this is where I got all my training." And I peek around the corner, who's there, you know? So anyway, I just last summer I had to walk one of the pilots through all the old Great Lakes offices and through the hangar buildings because that's where he did all his training, and it's just so fun to see. I also just had a call on Unicom frequency. I had a guy flying American Airlines. He was at 35,000 feet. "Hey, Gil, I'm flying over Spencer today. Just wanted to say hi." So I just love that. You know, going through those years, there were so many people that started small. We hired a lot of our crew members either from Iowa Lakes, from Mankato State, from UND out of North Dakota, a lot of Midwest kids. So at that time, we were able to hire them at much low total time hours than you can today. There's been a lot of regulation changes in that regard, but they'd fly in their right seat and they would maybe have 400 hours of flight time, but they got to learn getting their flight time flying right seat. We did have a contract with China Airlines for a period of time, which had a program through the University of North Dakota, where they would train at the University of North Dakota from no hours through probably 1,500 hours. Some of those hours were actual time, again, flying as a second in command in one of our 1900s. So we had a lot of Chinese students. So then when they would graduate from University of North Dakota, they went directly to China Airlines and would fly and go through another training process, obviously, to fly in whatever equipment they were flying. We did have, as employee numbers in Spencer, I think we maxed around 120, 130, just in the offices at the airport. We ran all our reservations initially out of airport. And then we also leased a building over in the industrial park that we had all our accounting offices moved over there. And then we used the larger part of the buildings as our kind of a maintenance facility, a build-up facility where we would overhaul our own flap actuators and build up brakes and build up gears, and we would do all of that. So that was all done in Spencer. So we had employee numbers that really brought a lot of people into the community over the years, I guess. And as Tim had mentioned too, you know, a lot of the improvements that were done at Spencer, there's reporting to the federal government as far as your emplanement numbers. Well, with those emplanement numbers also gave you a level of federal funding that would be available to your airport dependent on your number of emplanement numbers. And so because of that, that was a reason we got a lot of our runway extensions, our parallel taxiways, our ILS, instrument approach landing system, the Malzers, the PAPIs, all of those things, which are light guiding systems for our runways. Because of a lot of those emplanement numbers and the activity that was at the airport is a big reason why we have all of those amenities for an airport of a community of the size of Spencer. So I guess I feel proud about that part of it. It brought a lot. And, you know, we have a lot of people fly into the airport today. You know, it's like, wow, you got a great airport for how big is Spencer, you know, and, you know, you kind of go through a lot of the history. Of course, we see a lot of traffic today that goes up to the lake as well, but we see a lot of corporate stuff that comes into Spencer. A lot of times we get a little hint of, oh, there's a Menards airplane. Oh, isn't that interesting? Oh, and then, oh, we have a Menards coming to Spencer. So there's just you know, I always say we're the highway to Spencer from the sky. You know, we're the door from the sky that comes into Spencer as far as business travelers and you know, travelers going to the lake.
Yeah. So people that come, I tell them about Warren's visit here a few months back.
Warren Buffett flew in to see Marilyn May.
Oh my God.
He flew in at about 6:30 and left again about 10 o'clock.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. But we get a lot of fun visitors.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford flew in. Yep, got his autograph. There's been a few fun things. And, you know, we've done a lot of fun things over the years. We did have air shows and so forth for a lot of years. That's a lot of work to put those all together. But through all of those years, you make such a, you know, the aviation industry as a whole is kind of that small little community at the same time. So you get to know some aerobatic people and air show performers, and then you get to know them all. So it's been an experience that I still communicate with a lot of them through the years, and go to Oshkosh and see a lot of them over there. So
Good job.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's just a chart of some of the Great Lakes things that she was talking about. Now you wonder why they left Spencer, and the reason is, at the time, Wyoming had no commercial service airports, including Cheyenne. And the state was very anxious to have a commercial air service out there, and so they agreed to contract with Great Lakes. They also built them a $20 million building. I actually stopped to visit the guy back in '99 when I was out on a trip, and the airport manager, and I stopped and introduced myself to the secretary and said, give him my card, and he said, come on in, let's talk. So, but that's why they've moved out there. We're happy to have them, and their being here is the reason we have the airport today. Back when Wyman was on the board, one of the things we got from the feds, they had a bunch of money left over, didn't have it spent. So they called the Spencer powers that be and said, we got a few $100,000. Would you like to pave your parking lot bigger? And that's why the parking lot is as big as it is. Now, if you want to get into why we don't have commercial air service, so back in 1978, if you had official air service, you were grandfathered into the Central Air Service program. We did not have an official airline at that point in time, so we were not eligible. Dean Torson and myself went to Washington, D.C. to talk to Dennis Devaney, who was in charge of that program. And he said, well, you can buy into it if you want, but you don't qualify for the Fed funds. So buying into it at that time was probably $1 million a year local match. Today it's about $3.5 million. Didn't get it. The two airports closest to us are Fort Dodge and Mason City, who do have essential air service. They have a tough time meeting their minimum requirements of about 10,000 employments per year. And each of those communities is getting about $3.1 million in federal funds to continue that operation. So if we wanted to do something like that, we could kick in about $3 million a year and do something. If we did do it, we'd have to put a 6-foot tall fence all around the airport with razor wire at the top, do a TSA type of thing, and it gets kind of complicated. Now, if anybody wants to fly out of Spencer, you contact Gail. She can arrange it for you. No TSA, no baggage checks. They'll take you anywhere in the country you want to go, and probably including Mexico and Canada for that matter. You don't. Okay. Taking me to International Falls, let them go across. This is what they call a sectional map. This is what VFR pilots used. Spencer is in the upper, right here in the middle. These lines around the outside edge are what they call a MOA, Military Operations Area. There are 3 MOAs. This is the North Crip MOA, the Central Crip MOA, and down at the bottom is the Southern MOA. So in the summertime, when you hear F-16's jets flying around, this is what they're doing. They're flying in the military operations area conducting exercises. So you hear some very loud jet engines. You look here, but they're over there. That's what's happening. They also use our orange arch roof hangar as a target because it's easy to see from the air.
Base of it is at 8,000 feet, and it goes to 20,000.
8 to 20, yeah.
So you just vision that box, and when they are, what they call the box is hot, they're using the box, then any airplanes that are coming through our area has to go around the box.
Okay, I'll say it again.
Oh. Well, the MOA above us starts at an elevation of 8,000 feet to 20,000 feet. So the military, when they're doing their training exercises, they will fly inside that boxed area, and they will then file with the FAA saying the box is hot. When the box is hot, then any aircraft that are flying through our area does have to go outside that box area if they're between 8,000 and 20,000 foot.
But as a private pilot, there's no problem flying it through there because they avoid you. So not an issue. We had a sales rep for a mattress company a few years back. There was Air National Guard out of Lincoln. He was flying in the MOA over by Sioux Falls, Sioux Center area, hit a goose. Took the glass out of the cockpit in a F-4 Phantom. He was the pilot in the front. His rear seater ejected. This is in January. he flew it back to Lincoln open cockpit and barely kept it slowed down enough to keep it in the air at about 250 knots. That's close to 300 miles an hour for you guys. Next slide is the Minneapolis airspace. It's a little more complicated. There's height restrictions and elevations and things like that. As a private pilot, you got to avoid. The outer ring, which is a 30-mile ring, goes around the outside of the thing, and you have to talk to the approach control or departure when you're within that ring. Then you can fly in under it. It's like an upside-down wedding cake. It gets bigger as it goes up and smaller as it goes down closer to the airport. So you can sneak into St. Paul or one of the other smaller airports in the cities. Okay, now we're going to have a quiz. Little Debbie at the airport. Anybody got any conjectures what it might be about? Gail knows, but she's not going to spill the beans. This is how it was delivered. Seriously, look at the N number on the back of the aircraft, the last 3 digits or 2 digits. LD, Little Debbie. Yeah, so they're up to something. So,
They did come to visit.
okay, all right, right there. So you can sometimes tell what's going on in the community by what kind of aircraft are parked out there. A few years back when Alex Rodriguez was playing for the Yankees, they would have a home game up in, or not a home game, away game in Minneapolis, and his pilot was from Lake Park. Alex, can I borrow the jet to fly to Lake Park? Or Spencer, go visit my family? He'd say sure. And so he'd fly down, and the last 2 digits of his aircraft was his player number for the Yankees. So we knew when the jet was in town, that's what was going on. Gail mentioned about getting a radio traffic transmission from a jet flying up above one of her former people. One of the most interesting ones is Quint DeGroot has a cousin that was in the co-pilot in Air Force One. So Quint was telling me this story that Quint has a discrete frequency, not the normal 123.0 that we use at the airport. Quint has a discrete, his own personal frequency they use at Spencer Avionics for testing radios. And one day, the radio says, Spencer Avionics, this is your cousin Jason calling you on your discrete frequency. Quinn says, where are you at? He says, walk outside and look up. Can't tell you where I'm at, but go outside and look up. So, well, that kind of concludes most of the slideshow that I've got. I'd be happy to take any questions anybody's got. Merlin, I'm assuming you do it. Now you're going to get a microphone to talk loud. Karen's going to fix you up here.
I think that one.
Is the Spirit Lake Airport still in existence?
Yes, it is, and it's dangerous.
Okay. I understand many aircraft stop in Spencer for gas overnight. That's what we hear, a lot of airplanes flying in here. Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, overnight, probably not. During the daytime, yes.
During the daytime, all right.
Now, what you're probably hearing is the helicopters coming into the hospital.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Now, the Great Lakes Airport must be very large. Who is in charge? That's
The Spencer Airport?
oh, that's the Great Lakes Airport. The Great Lakes, the large company that's doing business in about every airport in the nation. Great Lakes Aviation, is that what they called?
Great Lakes is no longer up.
Okay.
Hasn't been operating since 2018.
Okay. Oh, that long ago. That's only 3, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, so they are no longer.
Do you expect the Spencer Airport will be increased in the future?
increased as in?
Size and use?
We would hope so. We are limited to about 50,000 pound aircraft. That particular airplane is under that a little bit. The airplane that was in the first slide was a Gulfstream, and that is over that weight limit. So we're allowed to have aircraft up to 50,000 pounds on a regular basis, and a few over the thing. Valero Energy comes to town about 4 times a year. They fly a Gulfstream 5, which can be at about 60, 70,000 pounds, a little over limit, or it can be as high as about 120,000 pounds. So when they come into Spencer, they come in with less fuel to be lighter. And since they're an oil company, they don't buy fuel. They just fly to they do a 4 different stop run. It's not the executives that are usually on it. It's the plant people that make things work. So it's not all the corporate owners. In their case, it's the foremen, the mechanics, and people that understand how to make the machinery go.
My last question is, way back when, I used to know a girl named Gail, but then she went out to the airport and I never saw again until tonight.
Gail is eating lunch with us at the Rotary every Monday. You just don't see her.
You're kidding. Well, I'm at the Kiwanis, and so we'll have to wave at you occasionally.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Mark, would you like to make any comments?
No, very nice.
Okay. Slider, how about your uncle's at the South Airport?
I was awfully young then, so but it was in his. I was very young then, but it was definitely in his blood, and it still runs through all of us. Andy Anderson taught me to fly, also, and Spencer is very lucky to have the airport that we have.
That's true. Very true. Tom?
Yes, Slider, I'd like to ask what happened to Dean's Jenny.
Thank you. I do know, for those of you that don't know, Uncle Dean was building a 1917 Flying Jenny. It was a rotary aircraft, and my brother Charlie was going to get to fly that, but Dean passed away before we got that in the air. It ended up in Oshkosh, and we were riding our motorcycles back from Canada one time when we stopped at Oshkosh, and the airplane was gone, but all the signage and everything was still there. And we got to go in with the curator, and he gave us all the information on how much the aircraft cost when it was new and everything. So we didn't get to see the aircraft at Oshkosh, but it went to England, I believe. And when it was in England, it was crashed and totaled out, but I believe that they were building it back again. So I know that far, but I don't know exactly where it is now, or if it's airworthy now.
I have seen it at Oshkosh, and I got a picture of it somewhere, but it's lost someplace. Anybody else? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you for attending. Up front, we have copies of some 3 different master plans over the years, some articles on the Bernie Wheeler glider pilots training in Spencer. Feel free to take some of those with you. And if you got any questions about master plans, I'm happy to answer that. One of the things that we did do as airport, Bill Hemme and I did, we have the first instrument approach to a hospital in the Midwest region. That's courtesy of Rochester Mayo Clinic. And we're in a 5-state region, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma. Am I skipping one? You don't remember either. So anyhow, that was the first instrument approach in the hospital. What that allows as an instrument pilot, you have to select an alternate that has good weather, close, and carry enough fuel to go back and forth and around. By having the instrument approach into the hospital at Spencer and an instrument approach into the Spencer Airport, it's only a few miles apart, so we can transport helicopter people can transport people for a longer distance without having a stop and refuel along the way. So, yeah, thanks everybody for coming. Got things up here if you want to look at it. Happy to answer more questions.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Dale. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Next Thursday is the history of baseball in Spencer, so same bat time, same bat channel. Please join us. And if you cannot attend, you can certainly catch it on Facebook Live. They do all the broadcasts for each of those. So thanks for coming out.